A lot of sites are just text with question and answers to feed AI to maximize AI overviews results. But from a UX perspective, no user is going to consume that content. It's boring. That piece of content, I call it text vomit because it's not properly structured.
You have said you wrote your first email to Koray and everything changed after that. What was the moment of realization? What were you doing before that was fundamentally wrong? And what did Koray's framework make you unlearn?
You cannot fill the cup until you empty the cup. So you have to get rid of your previous conclusions and then adopt new way of thinking regarding semantic SEO. That would be the shift. If you can convey a message with a bot in 300 words instead of 2,000 words, the cost is way less. If you think that way at all levels, you are ahead of most people. I don't think there is any tool that exists in the market regarding to visual semantics.
Welcome back to the Agency Insider Show. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal, and today's episode is one I've been genuinely looking forward to. We are talking about the cutting edge of SEO, where SEO is headed, not the keyword stuffing, link building, playbooks of yesterday, but the science of meaning, the visual layer of search, and what happens when AI agent starts doing the searching for your customers. My guest today is Salazar Jurado, a semantic SEO consultant from Spain who started life as a web developer and over the last several years has become one of the most respected practitioners in the holistic SEO community. Luis, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, so today for our audience, we are going to unpack three massive topics: visual semantics, an emerging concept that most SEO haven't even heard of yet; agentic search, what it means when AI agents are the one browsing, comparing, and buying on behalf of users; and semantic SEO, the foundations of everything Luis does, and why most people are still doing it wrong. So, Luis, you are dialing in from Spain, right?
That's right.
Right. So, for our audience who may not know you yet, give us the 60-second version. Who is Luis, and what gets you out of bed every morning when it comes to SEO?
Well, as you mentioned, I was a developer in the past, and around 10 years ago, I was encountered to fix a technical SEO issue. At that time, I didn't know what that meant. And since then, what I've been doing is technical SEO audits, and lately, the last 4 or 5 years, semantic SEO. And we are living very exciting times with new things going on, like agentic search, and a lot of news related to searches with agents and so on and so forth. So that's what get me, let's say, excited about the industry, which is never static. It's always changing.
Right. Now, you spent 6-7 years as a developer, as you said, before moving into the SEO. Most SEO learns marketing first and technology second, including myself. You did the opposite. Now, what's the single biggest advantage that gives you over someone who comes from a pure marketing background?
The advantage I believe I have is, first of all, I can communicate with a developer, a sysadmin, or someone technical in the, let's say, SEO team way more effectively. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I can do myself, I would say, 80% of the technical SEO on any project, because I code JSON-LD, schema markup, all this stuff, and I've been doing it and fixing it in the past, not only doing technical SEO audits, but coding myself. I would say that's the main advantage. And another thing is, now with all the agentic search and so on and so forth, and web MCP and all these standards, all the technical jargon and all the technical knowledge that is coming is easy for me to assimilate. That, I would say, is my competitive advantage.
That is true. I mean, today's with MCP and everything, it's I'm sure it's far easier for you than me to connect and understand those things.
Yeah, that's because at the end of the day, it's code, HTML, and technical information. Because at the end of the day, an agentic search is nothing more than a piece of software that is coming to your site and analyzing the code and getting the information, and then you're going to get an SEO advantage if you know how to structure the content and organize that information for the agents.
Now, when you look at how a search engine processes a web page, you are thinking about it from the code level, the DOM, the rendering pipeline, how JavaScript loads. Can you walk us through what happens when a Google bot hits a page as a developer would explain it versus how a marketer think about it?
The bot is nothing more than a software application that, let's say, eat code and analyze the code from top to bottom. So the better the code is structured, the easier it is to understand for a bot. For instance, Cloudflare recently announced that they're going to provide the web pages in markdown. So they're going to reduce the cost for bots, especially for agents. So the agents are going to, let's say, see that markdown version. This is the information they're going to first digest, so they don't need to crawl the page. Everything is going to be packed in a protocol that those agents are going to understand. So they don't need to crawl the website anymore when that standard is adopted on this protocol, because at the end of the day, communication between humans is due to the language. We are from two different countries, but now we are communicating with a common language, which is English. For bots, is the same. There's a specific bots that can crawl and digest HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and so forth. And there are agents that the data is going to be structured in markdown, which is nothing more than another standard. And in that case, the agents are going to reach your site, get the markdown, and leave, and they're going to have all the information about your site or your online business.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the Koray framework and the holistic SEO community. Now, you have said you wrote your first email to Koray in January 2022, and everything changed after that. What was the moment of realization? What were you doing before that that was fundamentally wrong? And what did Koray's framework make you unlearn?
As you mentioned, my first email to Koray was 4 years ago. But before that, I consumed, read, and watched a lot of videos. So the first time I wrote to Koray, it was probably the first time I felt confident enough to understand barely the framework. And since then, what I've done is combine all the SEO knowledge with the semantic SEO. And the point is, I'm going to use an expression I really like, is you cannot fill the cup until you empty the cup. So you have to get rid of your previous conclusions and then adopt new way of thinking regarding semantic SEO.
Right.
And step by step, you're going to be changing your mindset and how do you approach your SEO project. That would be the shift I've done from purely technical SEO to now more holistic SEO view.
Okay. Now, you also attended invite-only Semantic SEO Mastery event in Kuşadası, Turkey, and participated in the Semantic SEO Hackathon in Chiang Mai alongside Powell and German and Harry and others. Now, when you put that many semantic SEO practitioners in one room, what kind of a breakthrough happens that can't happen online?
The good thing is we all come from different backgrounds, but the connection between us is semantic SEO and the holistic SEO approach, which means we share our ideas and we combine our ideas and information, and then we build on top of the semantic SEO framework, which means we reinforce our knowledge and we share examples and experiences and so on and so forth. And that would be the positive thing about the Kuşadası Mastermind. And because as you mentioned, you mentioned several names, but all of us are from different countries, different industries, different backgrounds, and different, let's say, knowledge about SEO as well. So that's the best part, because holistic SEO means you have the view about everything, not only from technical, not only from semantics, but from a strategy, link building, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Now, you've applied semantic SEO across insurance, iGaming, car subscription, and e-commerce and SaaS. Now, these are wildly different verticals. Does semantic SEO work the same way across all of them, or does the framework needs to bend depending on the industry? Where does it bend the most?
That's a great question, because in the framework itself, there are differences, or there are different approaches. It depends on what the project needs. It's not the same micro semantics, it's not the same statistical, linguistic, and distributional semantics. So each project have specific things. And in each case, you have to identify which semantic SEO optimization is going to be the best to move the needle, to get more traction. For instance, I've shared case studies where I've used statistical, linguistic, and distributional semantics. In other case studies, I've used micro semantics. In other projects, we use semantic content network, because we have to cover the topic in order to compete with our competitors that at that time were way better than us covering that topic. And I would say that's the main thing, because in the question itself, you mentioned e-commerce, iGaming, insurance, but at the end of the day, everything is semantics, everything is technical SEO, because the same web standard is for all of us. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the DOM, the ranking factors, everything else is there for each one of us. The key is which angle of attack you use and which technique or strategy.
Okay. Now, you worked with one company from startup through 2 funding rounds and international expansion into France, Netherlands, and beyond. Now, how does semantic SEO scale with a company as it grows internationally? And what breaks when you take a strategy that works in Spanish and try to replicate, let's say, it in French or Dutch?
That's a very good follow-up question. And the thing is, a semantic search engine is language agnostic, which means once you define the entity you want to rank for, and you consolidate, let's say you define the strategy in English, you can use that strategy. You're going to rank the same entity, but you're going to do it in different languages. So you identify the entity, the attributes, the predicates, and so on and so forth. And once you define the strategy in English, then you can replicate it in French, Spanish, the language you want. Okay. So that would be the answer to my question.
Okay.
Probably I'm using a lot of technical terms such as entity, attributes, predicates, and so on and so forth. But this is part of the semantic SEO, let's say.
We are going to go into it a bit as well now. So let's talk about visual semantics. So, Luis, you recently shared about visual semantic as a new SEO strategy for the audience. Let's start from the scratch. What is visual semantic in the context of search, and how is it different from image SEO or visual search that people might already know?
That's the best of the best question I probably have ever been asked. Visual semantics compared with image optimization or any other optimization is a mix between UX, UI, design, how the information is structured in the page, and providing a mix between user information, informational question answers, and so on and so forth. Let's say you have a page, and only by the way it is structured, not only with images and so on and so forth, but with different sections, indentation, the size of the headings. For instance, I'm trying to convince one of my clients that in a blog post, they have designed the image before the heading H1, and I'm trying to convince them that the heading H1 should be on top of the image, not below the image. And this is one example of visual semantics. Why? Because either if the user is consuming the content both from desktop or mobile, the image, if there is the first thing the users see, is not as important as they see the heading H1, because in the heading H1 is both for the user and for about the information about they're going to consume. But an image on their own doesn't provide any information neither for the user nor for the bot. So this is one example from visual semantics, which means the heading H1 should be on top of the image, and then the image, and then, but we can improve even that way more, which is heading H1 and then centerpiece annotation, which is the first 400 characters of the page, and then you put the image at the bottom. Because if you merge UX UI with semantic SEO, the decision-making process of if a user is going to consume the content, the first step is to grab the attention. How are you going to grab the attention with an image on their own and covering the whole page? First is the heading H1, then the paragraph or summary about what the content is about, then you provide the image and then extra information. So this is one example from visual semantics. And compared to image optimization or any kind of optimization, or is traditional SEO is provide the keyword in the alt text for image.
Right.
But semantic SEO optimization is the image should have the logo of the brand you're ranking, text to convey the message of the image, exit information about the image, the alt attribute, and then the image should represent the product or service you're selling, both for the user and for the bots. If a bot crawl the image, get the image, can differentiate what this product or service is about, yes or no? If it is not, it's not properly optimized. So visually, both for the user and the bots, that is visual semantics. Combine all the optimization we mentioned in one shot.
Okay. Now, Google has visual semantic annotations like centerpiece annotations. Can you explain what centerpiece annotation is and why it matters, and how does Google use it to evaluate whether a page is worth processing further?
Great. Centerpiece annotation is a semantic SEO terms, which means the first 400 character of your page. Why? Because when a bot land in your page, instead of crawling and digesting and analyzing all the information of the page, they evaluate the quality of the content just in this first 400 characters. If the quality is not good enough, they don't keep spending time on your page. If the quality is good enough and that information represent or share accurately, clearly what this page is about, then they spend more time in your page.
Okay.
That's why in semantic SEO, once you optimize the page, this is a very important point, because if that section is not properly optimized, it's likely that the quality of the page is not that good, because you didn't engineer before you release it.
Okay, got it. Now, so if I understand correctly, Google doesn't just read text, it looks at the layout, the visual hierarchy, where things are positioned on the page. Now, how does this connect to the concept of cost of retrieval that the holistic SEO community talks about?
Well, cost of retrieval, you have to think a cost at all levels, which means, as you mentioned, layout, visual representation of the information, text, server load, web page, web performance, and on top of that, no blocking from JavaScript. Why? Because if in those first 400 characters, a bot can identify the quality of the overall page. You have an advantage with other sites that spend a ridiculous amount of time just waiting until the JavaScript parse the page, for instance. Or if a JavaScript framework do not render the information, the information is not in the DOM, and the crawler cannot see anything. So that's one of the critical factor. But going back to the question about cost or retrieval, you have to think about cost at all levels, which means text. Can you say in, I don't know, 2 lines what you said in a paragraph of 5 lines? Again, both for the user and for the bots. Is the heading H1 properly structured so both for the user and for the bots is clear what this page is about? All those elements combined are related to cost of retrieval, because cost is not only one variable, is this the summary of everything, is text, images, loading, everything.
Okay. Now let's talk about practical applications of visual semantics. So can you walk us through a real scenario? Let's say if an agency is redesigning a client's landing page, what specific visual semantic principles should they be thinking about? And where do most designers and developers go wrong from a visual semantic perspective?
Well, you have to, or the best of the best practices are the ones where the most important section of the page is at the top, and then you, let's say, structure the page so the information which is not as relevant to the user is at the bottom. So you have to find the balance between image, text, layout, proper design, and proper structure. I'm going to share an example.
Okay.
We have been changing in one client every single image of the page in order to provide the 3 variables I mentioned, which is the logo, the text in the image, and redesign the image so the product we sell is obvious both for the user and for the bot in the image itself. But then we have done A/B testing to put the image a little bit closer to the top or in the middle of the page, because we have to test where it's going to be more appealing for the user to keep the user consuming the content. Because for a long time, most blog posts was like 2,000, 4,000 words, a few images in the middle, and that piece of content, I call it text vomits, because it's not properly structured, is purely designed to fit excuse me, AI. But if a user land there, are they really solving a problem? Are there all those questions, let's say, solving real objections of these people to buy the product or not? So there are, over the last years, there have been a lot of content created with AI also, which means they're not properly structured. They're just trying to maximize the probabilities to win, but it's like they're bloated and the system is bloated. So in semantic SEO game is, okay, I'm going to design a page which is going to answer right away the question for the user and for the bot as well.
So the funny thing is that's now everybody starts talking how you optimize for LLM is exactly what you are talking about, which you've been doing, right?
Yes. So let's say a lot of, I've seen recently a lot of sites that are just text with question and answers. So the point is, people are doing this to feed AI, to maximize AI overviews results. But from my UX perspective, no user is going to consume that content. It's boring. It's text after text after text. So when a user land there, the user experience, the nav boost, which means the boost you get if you get a lot of users clicking and consuming your content, it's going to be wasted. So
Right.
that's an example of visual semantics as well.
Okay. Now, you have combined visual semantic with textual semantic on projects. How do these two layers interact? And is there a case where improving the visual semantics of the page moved the needle even when the text didn't change?
Yes. What we've done is A/B testing.
Okay.
Why? Because in the A/B testing, we come up with the interface that the user was looking for, or what the user expect.
Right.
One example I use is, have you seen those alarm clock sites on the internet where you can search up Google alarm clock, and you have several sites where you leave your laptop connected, and an alarms is ready when you program it. So all those sites are purely ranking on user signals. Do you know what I mean? So because they have no text, it's just user interaction. Is excuse me, probably hundreds of thousands of people landing there and programming their alarm clocks, and that's the perfect example to combine UX with user signals and semantics.
Okay. Now, how do you audit a page for visual semantics? So you told me the logo and everything. My thing is that, are there tools, or is it still largely a manual process requiring the developer's eye that you bring to the table?
Yeah, it's a manual process so far. To share like a common approach is, if I'm going to design a landing page where I sell a product, I try to answer the transactional queries at the top in the above the fold, and then once I have more information about potential questions to eliminate objections of the customer, I put it at the bottom, but not creating a huge amount of question and answer. Only the question and answer are going to solve that objections. So the common structure is attention grabbing headline in the heading H1 or in the title, the snippet to get it as let's say more appealing as possible, and then the above the fold clear message and call to action if I have to sell a product, and then in the supplementary content, which is in the content underneath, I provide the FAQs, let's say, or more information related to the product, like a description and so on.
Okay. Now let's talk about visual semantic and AI and LLMs. Now, with multimodal AI models, how being able to see web pages, not just read them, now how does visual semantic becomes even more critical? And are we approaching a world where how your page looks matter as much as what it says for search rankings?
Yes, so you have to find the balance. Let's say in the past, when I didn't have let's say the possibility to optimize a page with visual semantic, what I've used is a schema, because a schema is a different layer of communication with a bot. First of all, it's a standard, it's a web standard. Major search engines adopted a long time ago, and at the end of the day, it's extra information about the page. So if you cannot optimize the page visually, at least provide more granular, more accurate information and granular to a bot, so they can is more specific for them, the information in the page. That's what I would do. And because now it seems we have to feed an endless amount of bots and agents and LLMs and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, all the information, the quickest way to feed any bot is with semantics, because transcribe a video is where you need a lot of cost. Transcribe an image, you can transcribe it to text. Text itself is the fastest way. And I would sum up in that way is like any input of information, video, PDF, image, text, audio, everything can be transcribed to text faster than anything else. So the way is to feed all the LLMs and agents and bots in different layers of communication with images, JSON-LD, text, video, audio, etc., and to make it easier for them to transcribe that to probably text and then digest all that text. So going back to semantic SEO and cost of retrieval, if you can convey a message with a bot in 300 words instead of 2,000 words, the cost is way less. If you think that way at all levels, you are ahead of most people.
Okay. Now, if someone listening to this want to start implementing visual semantics on their website tomorrow, what are the first 3 things they should do?
Okay, first of all, they can go to Google and search for visual semantics, SEO, let's say, and they're going to find probably a few sources of information. Second of all, I would encourage them to sit down with UX and UI profiles and say, okay, I have this problem, which is how we can design 3 different landing pages and test and do an A/B test to see which one is more appealing for the user. And then evolve that page with, let's say, traditional SEO optimization, which is, can we make the heading H one a little bit longer? Can we include 1 or 2 more words? Can we expand the initial paragraph you design here? And with that, you're providing more and more information to the bot, and at the same time, you're testing. And in that way, you can, let's say, make sure by experience what is working and what is not working. Because at the moment, I don't think there is any tool that exists in the market. And regarding to visual semantics, Koray is going to launch in June a course about visual semantics and algorithmic authorship. So I encourage everybody who see this, first of all, to put the pillars in semantic SEO and then build on top with semantic SEO and algorithmic authorship in probably early June.
Okay. Now let's move to our next segment, which is deep diving into the agentic search and its impact on SEO. Now, Luis, we are seeing the fundamental shift from human searching to AI agents searching on behalf of humans. GPT agents activity near doubled in the single month in 2025. Now, all other LLMs continue to launch agents. Now, from a semantic SEO practitioner's perspective, how does this change the game?
Let me merge 3 sources of information we mentioned, which is WebMCP, cost of retrieval, and Cloudflare providing the website compressed in markdown. At the end of the day, it's nothing more than everything is summed up in making cheaper and faster for bots to understand your content or what you sell, what you offer. The key is to make it faster, cheaper, and more clear to them. So the cost to not only digest your information, but understand what do you sell, what's your target market, what's your audience, and that's the game. So the core principles are the same. The only difference is you have to be more granular and provide the information in a different manner. Let's say WebMCP, I only remember 3 parameters or 3 optimizations, which is in HTML, you're going to provide 3 parameters to communicate with an agent. So let's say you have a form where your potential customer is going to provide the name, your email, probably, I don't know, another piece of information. So they have created, it's not a standard yet, but it seems it's going to become a standard, WebMCP. So Google and Microsoft agreed on, and again, a new protocol. And in your HTML code, you're going to say, hey, this is a form, and this form has been designed for a specific purpose. And here are the properties. In this field is going to be the email. In this field is going to be the name. In this text box is going to be this information. Here the send button, and at what the user expects when you fill that data is whatever. And that information is going to be structured, and an agent is going to come to your site, is going to digest the code, and is going to understand what you sell. So that way, when someone search in any interface in the future, let's say I want to buy a piece of jewelry with, let's say, a gold ring for my fiance. I'm 36 and my budget is X amount of euros. So they're going to trigger the request to the AI agent, and the AI agent is going to provide the solutions. If your site, if your business do not have the WebMCP standard compared to the other sites that have the WebMCP standard, you're going to have an advantage if you have implemented the WebMCP standard compared to the other sites. That's the new game.
Okay, now, so when an AI agent browses a website, it's just not reading content, it's making decision, it's comparing, evaluating something, sometimes now even purchasing. So you mentioned three types or three fundamental things we need to be on the website, but are there any, what kind of a website architecture and content structure does an AI agent prefers versus what a human prefers? So are they the same or fundamentally different outside the WebMCP and the MD?
Yeah, the core is the same. The little differences are the ones that are going to move the needle.
Okay.
Again, a form either by JavaScript or HTML is nothing more than a piece of code with a functionality. The key is going to be communicating in an agent language, let's say, and the better you can understand that protocol, the better. Let's say, again, going back to the initial example, we are two people from different countries, different backgrounds, and we are communicating the same protocol, which is English, the same language. So the thing is, in the near future, your site is going to speak a lot of languages because you are going to communicate with agents in let's say, different layers in different standards, probably with API connections, new protocols, new things. I'm going to use an example which is no longer working, which is there was a protocol for media companies where they code the site with a specific standard in HTML, but that technology is no longer working. I forgot.
Is that the AMP?
Yeah, AMP. AMP is a technology that was born and is dead.
Yes.
But the point is accelerate mobile pages.
Pages, right.
It was nothing more than pure HTML with a little JavaScript at the top. And pages were loaded way faster. And that standard is probably no longer working, I don't know. But that idea is what's coming, which means a new standard to communicate with in a different layer. That's it. It's but the core is the same.
Okay. Now let's talk about semantic SEO, which of course is the foundation for agentic readiness. Now here's my theory. I think people who have been doing semantic SEO well are actually the most prepared for the agentic future. Because they have already been structuring content for machine understanding. Do you agree, or is there a gap even for a semantic SEO practitioner?
This quote is not for mine. This quote is from Koray. The best semantic SEO guys are guys who have studied sociology or they understand languages because they merge the, let's say, the psychological angle with the language angle. Because as
Okay.
sociologists, it's gonna be easier for them to understand how people think. So the advantage in that case is, in my opinion, nowadays, is the better you understand your potential customer, what they want, what they're looking for, what missing information you have, and you fulfill that gap. That's going to be the competitive advantage in my case because, again, anybody can launch a WordPress site uh, everywhere in the world in less than
Right.
an hour. Everybody can do that, so there is no advantage there. The advantage is going to come to understand way better, probably psychology, sociology, and of course, if you have a, if you are a very good engineer, you're going to have an advantage as well because at the end of the day, semantic SEO is nothing more than a structure, the content, and the architecture of the site in a way that is cheaper for the bot to understand compared to your competitors. That's it. So it's a kind of relational database with semantics, but on top of that, you need visual semantics, which means proper design and structure, and a great IT team. It depends on the niche. The better developers and the better server you have, you are going to have an edge as well.
Right.
And that would be the summary.
Okay. Now, so structured data and schema markups and entity relationships, all the things you optimize for in semantic SEO. How important do these become when an AI agent is the one consuming your content? Is schema the new first impression for agentic crawlers?
Well, a schema, JSON LD by definition is JavaScript linked data. LD means linked data. And in itself, linked data means the JSON is going to create the connections about the entity and the topics in that page. And then it's going to
Okay.
connect that page with another page in the whole website. It's been said in the industry that LLMs and AI agents read schema. So if you have a schema, you have an edge. Because think about it, this code is not mine. This code I heard like, I don't know, maybe 8-9 years ago. Think about it. JSON LD is the fastest, cheapest, more efficient way to communicate with a machine. And all the agents are machine readable, which means the fastest way you can communicate with a bot is with JSON because the bot do not need to crawl the page. They just visit the page, check if there is JSON or not, and if there is no JSON, they leave. But consuming the JSON is the cheapest because they don't have to parse. They don't have to parse and load in the DOM all the HTML. So,
Right.
in my opinion, JSON LD is the best way to communicate with all kind of agents. And if it is properly designed and structured, you provide the architecture of the site as well and the relationship between entities. So not only you do it semantically with text, but also you can do it with the linked data.
Okay. Now, we are seeing new protocols like OpenAI Agentic Commerce Protocol, where AI agents can complete purchases. Now, for e-commerce clients you work with, how should they be preparing their product pages, pricing data, and inventory system for the new reality?
What I do with e-commerce, I've worked with Shopify, PrestaShop, Magento, WooCommerce. What I do is, first of all, JSON is the product, which is a standard, but you have to validate and make sure you provide as much information as possible about the product. The more granular, the better. For instance, you have to provide colors, shapes, sites, all this stuff. That's one optimization. But then going back to visual semantics and going back to the design, if the user right away in the laptop or in the mobile see the product, see the price, and see the information which is critical for the decision making to buy or not, you're way ahead of your competitors. If the other online businesses do not have a proper design, the image is not good quality, and the price is not even in the page, or it is not even, they have to scroll, let's say. So these kind of details also matter. Now the next level is going to be web MCP, when it seems is going to become a standard, but also now you can connect via API with ChatGPT on all these AI platforms. So at the end of the day, it's nothing more than a feed of data. You communicate directly with the API of these AI interfaces, and you get the structure of your business. So they don't need to come to your site and crawl. They just eat that information and know who you are, what you sell, what price, and so on and so forth. That's the next level.
Okay. Now, for agencies and consultants watching this, how should they be repositioning their service? Is Agentic SEO a real service offering, or is it just good semantic SEO with a new label?
I would say it is in its infancy. It's not yet a consolidated business. Let's say semantic SEO has been running for probably 5 to 6 years, and now has become something that most people trust. But at the beginning, most people did not trust semantic SEO. Now is because everybody is, it takes time to adopt a new idea or a new concept. So the same thing that happened with semantic SEO that took years to consolidate is going to happen with everything.
Okay. Now let's talk a bit about semantic SEO framework and a little bit about the execution part. Now let's get tactical. So when a new client comes to you, what does the first 30-day looks like? Can you walk us through your audit process step by step from the first time you open their site to when you deliver the strategy?
That's a very good question, and I've changed it over the years. Why? Because first of all, not every client is the same. It depends if it is an insurance company, e-commerce, a casino, whatever. What I do is get as much information about the business as possible from the business point of view, no SEO point of view, no technical information. Because I want to understand who is their customer, who is their ideal client. Why? Because a semantic search engines can group 3 things: users, queries, and documents. Users are real people, are the one that search on Google. The query is what they type on Google. And the document is the information to satisfy that query. It could be an image, a video, a podcast, text, whatever. So the user is a third of the, let's say, the trifecta. The first thing I do is to ask as much information about the business as possible to understand who is the user, who is the customer. Then, when we start working, I analyze the data, which means I analyze the queries, I analyze how they get traffic, in which pages do they want to get traffic, which is the queries, is how the users search. And then the third pillar is the document, which means, okay, we have these documents, we have this video on YouTube, we have this landing page, and so on and so forth. Is enough this document or information to satisfy the query that was triggered by the user? And this is how I circle the approach, which means business information, then analyze all the data, and finally come up with the optimizations.
Okay. Now, so you have talked about topical maps, semantic content networks, and query templates. So for someone who understands the concept but struggles with implementation, how do you actually build a topical map that works, and what's the process and what tools you use?
Good. Let's go back to the analysis.
Okay.
We mentioned we studied the users, the queries, how they search, and the document to satisfy those queries.
Right.
And once you have the information about the users, you have the information about the business, what they sell, what they want to sell, what they want to rank for. The topical map is nothing more than a plan, an organized plan to satisfy as much topic as possible about the brand to rank for as much term as possible. So it is a kind of word plan. So the topical map would be like the design on paper of the plan of attack. And then you decide which front is going to be the first one to attack. So in that topical map, when you define the topical map, then comes the semantic content network, which means in all this map we have created, all these connections, all these topics, and so forth, the semantic content network is which section of the map we're going to approach the first one and why. It could be the one that have less competition. It could be the first one that need to cover a topic in order to make the brand stronger. And when you have all of that, you start implementing and start optimizing. So you mentioned topical map, semantic content network, and then query templates means query templates is a repeated pattern about how the users search. Let's say users start typing, how much does it cost? And then whatever. How much does it cost? And then they add the product or the service they're looking for. So this is a query template. If you go on Google and start typing, how much does it cost? Google suggests different options. And you see the template there, which is how much does it cost? And Google fulfill the data. It depends on what the user is looking for. So you have three pillars of semantic SEO: query templates, semantic content network, and topical map.
Okay.
And the topical map is the global idea. But again, if we use the analogy of movies, you need someone to put the map there and design the plan, the attack plan. And this is in this case, the SEO who is going to decide the strategy. So that would be my approach and how I would structure the work with the client.
And is there a tool outside, or is it still manual?
It's manual. You can gather information from several tools, but at the end of the day, you have to do it manually, because again, each business have a specific needs and a specific situation, and they don't have. There are not two projects equal. There are not two sites on the internet. We have specifically the same thing. So each product is totally different.
Okay. Now, Koray's frameworks talk about fewer pages with more content. You demonstrated 3x growth with just 30 pages. Now, how do you decide which 30 pages to create, and what's the selection criteria when you can't cover everything?
I always start with the questions related to what you ask. I always start with the question, what am I missing? Which means with the URLs and the content I already have, what am I missing in that page, or what information I'm missing or we are missing in that piece of content? And then I build from there, because it's easier. In some cases, you have to create new content, but in most cases, you can gain a lot of traction if you improve what you already have. So I'm going to give you an example. To optimize for visual semantics, as I mentioned previously, we have changed every single image of a project. We're talking about hundreds of images. And we have to decide which image is going to be the one for each page. So in that case, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We just enhanced what we had. In the same way, rewriting, we are now in that same project, we are rewriting the whole website page by page, purely on, again, the three variables: users, queries, and documents, which means the URL is the same, but we are rewriting the queries because users are looking for information differently. So that's one angle of attack. But also, if we need new landing pages, let's say we have a new market we want to target, the analysis is the same, is based on the topical map, which means which topic we want to cover. We have to identify which one is going to be easier to rank for, and then we build from there. But to do that, you need the analysis, you need to understand the users, you have to gather information from different SEO tools, and then you set up the strategy.
Okay. Now, let's talk about micro-semantic in practice. Now, micro-semantic is your specialty, which is word-by-word optimization. Changing a single word or a punctuation mark to shift relevance. Can you give us a live example? What does micro-semantic optimization session actually looks like?
The example I use is, let's say, I think I shared this in a different interview. We have been working for a year with an online jewelry company. And I have no clue about online jewelry. In fact, I didn't know about a lot of products that exist. So when we did all the analysis and so on and so forth, we used statistical linguistic and distributional semantics and microsemantics, which means we spot an opportunity where most people were not using the word online in their e-commerce. Why? Because human thinking is, yes, but people search buy jewelry or buy jewelry for women. But no SEO tools, it gives you that a lot of people use the word online at the end.
Right.
Or at the beginning. You have to, let's say, go deep in the research to understand that. Or another example is, we grew the traffic just including the word woman in the online jewelry e-commerce, and the word woman was nowhere in the e-commerce, and we identified the pattern just putting the word women. But again, if you put the word women in just one word, one landing page or one collection page, it's not going to move the needle. You strategically have to repeat the word woman, and of course have to have meaning in the page. It's not just excluding the word, it's the meaning surrounded the search. It could be buy ring online for women, buy ring for women, buy gold ring online for women. And you come up with a lot of patterns. But again, you have to test it. You have to look at the SERPs. You have to look at the Google. And once you spot the opportunity, microsemantic, it could be just removing one word or adding one more word. And only that, if you do it systematically and consistently across the site, very slowly and steadily is going to increase the visibility, and over time it's going to give you the traffic. That would be my example for microsemantics.
Okay. Now, you grew a single SaaS landing page from 10-15 clicks per day to 600-800 clicks per day using microsemantic and UX design. Without naming the client, can you walk us through the sequence of changes that produced that result? What did you change first, second, or third?
Yeah, I can mention the name. They can, if people is interested in this, they can search on Google, and they can go to my YouTube channel, and I shared the case studies publicly. And I also shared how I optimized the landing page and the sequence. So what we did was, that's one example when I changed my mind from traditional SEO to semantic SEO. This was like 3 years ago, or even longer. Traditional SEO thinking is match queries to documents, which means I've searched, I've done the research in any SEO tool, and I've seen there is a lot of volume for this search query. So I'm going to create a landing page that match the query, and I rank. So in that landing page, what we did was do like 10 to 15 tests until we realized that the user was not looking for information. They wanted an interface that interface was connected with an API to the government site, so they give the information. And the niche is a SaaS that manage, when you buy or sell a car, all the paperwork with the government, but everything is online. So we created an interface. So you introduce the car license number, that API connect with the government and give you all the information about the car or the motorbike you want to buy or sell.
Okay.
And when we provide that information on top of the page, it was right away the information that the users see when they land in the page. They started interacting and give us the user signal, and that give us the boost. And then we systematically optimize the landing page every 3 to 4 months with more and more terms, and rewriting the page according to the information we got from Search Console.
Okay.
So that was my biggest shift in how I approach things. I mean, now I don't work with clients that do not make a commitment at least for 6 months, because when we identify an opportunity with a landing page, we're going to do like one optimization every 2 to 3 weeks. And the better we do the optimization, the more traffic we're going to get, the more data we're going to have, and the better we can improve that landing page, that collection page or whatever, and the more traffic we can get. So it's not that set it and forget it. Semantic SEO is not set it and forget it. In fact, this quote is not mine, it's from Koray. Every 6 months, Koray updates the content of their clients, because they have to adjust semantic distance. Probably something have changed in how the user search, and then they have to rewrite the content in order to satisfy that query intent. So these kind of things is a dynamic, is a never-ending dynamic situation.
Okay, we just overran our time, so just my last question now. You also showed a case where schema optimization created a snowball effect. Rich snippets led to more click, which created positive historical data signals, which of course led to more traffic. Now, how long did it take for Google to digest the structured data and start triggering rich snippets? And what schema types delivers the biggest ROI?
Well, it depends on the amount of traffic that gathers, the sites gather. The case study I share publicly about reviews snippets, these guys have like, I don't remember exactly the name, but a few thousand people only by organic search per day. So we implemented the review schema, and then we automatically enhance the snippet in Google, and we make it more appealing, and users click more, and they created the snowball effect, and that give us the boost. So it depends on the schema type, but I've gained a lot of traction with product schema, review schema, and in some niches with a specific, let's say, schema for that type. But mostly product and reviews, because of the ones that are more appealing. And price range. You can provide price range. For instance, in real estate, you can provide price range about the apartments. You can
Okay.
use a specific kind of schema. And then if something is looking for rent apartment in whatever the city plus price, you can show up on top with the snippet and the price range underneath the snippet. And it's more appealing visually for the user, and click more, and then
Right.
everything else unfold.
Right. With that, we came to the end of our show. And Luis, before we wrap up, where can people find you? Where should they go to learn more about your work and connect with you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for my name, Luis Salazar Jurado, or go to YouTube, search for my name, and they can have a look at the case studies we mentioned about the sites. And yeah, that's the two ways they can communicate with me. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and there you can see all my case study, because it's the social network I share everything.
Okay. And folks, if you're still thinking about SEO as just keywords and backlinks, this conversation should have been a wake-up call. Visual semantic, agentic search, distributional semantics, micro semantics. This is where search is going, and Luis is one of the people leading the way. If this episode added value, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, leave us a review, and share this with a fellow SEO who needs to hear this. And if you want to learn more about how we are using AI for strategies at Page Traffic, head over to pagetraffic.com. Luis, this has been an absolute masterclass, and thank you for being so generous with your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, and until next time, this is Navneet Kaushal from the Agency Insider Show. Keep pushing boundaries. Let me just